So we've got all the parts for the sliders unboxed. Open up the instructions, which is what you always do, right, with anything. And I can tell you from my past experience working with the front bumper for my Coastal Offroad front bumper, lay everything out. The company gives really good instructions, really good layout, images, pictures. Lay everything out. It makes assembly that much more efficient. So I'm going to show you what we've got. A little helper. That's Carter.
Hi.
All right, guys. So here's the instructions with the layout of all the parts. We've transposed them onto the ground on a flat surface right here by the welder. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sit down and read the instructions cover to cover, now knowing that we have all the pieces. And then we're going to go ahead and walk through how to build these sliders from Coastal Offroad step by step so that anybody can tackle this with their son on a Saturday. Okay, so the first step, guys, is on the square pieces here, is to grind the edges of these and bevel them so that this plate sets flush. Okay, and then weld it all in. So we've just welded up the end caps on the square tubing, and so now we actually have to test fit part number 3 and 4. This is your kick-out hoop for the rear and the plate. And so just lay it up against that square tubing and then set the plate in there, and it should fit pretty tight, just like that. And then once we get the position that we want, we'll tack it into place. And I'm going to do each side simultaneously. So this one, then we'll go to that one, and then we'll go to the next step. So that way we don't miss anything. All right, so in the test fitting, with the hooper here, the rear hoop, part number 3, I had to take a little bit of material off just to get everything set perfectly flush. Now we're good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and tack this into place, and then I'll tack in that plate as well. And just make sure that this is a level surface. I've already checked with the level on our floor here, the concrete, it's all level. So that'll make your build long term just that much sweeter. All right, so the kick out has been tacked. I have the plate set in, not tacked down yet, so that's the next step. I'm just gonna run a couple tacks around this loop here so it's secure, and then we'll move on to the other side. So because this kit is designed from the manufacturer to cover multiple vehicle lengths or vehicle types, this piece, the main hoop, number 5, you've actually got to cut. So what you're going to do is lie it down on the ground, get over here to the front, and get everything lined up to where you want it. Okay? Then come over here to the back, get it square, and then make an angle cut, or angle line, excuse me, following the contour of this back hoop. Now you need to make it longer than you think, because when you cut with the angle, you're going to have to notch the tube so it'll butt up against this. So you'd rather go too long than too short. All right, guys, so I've went ahead and cut the angle. Right there, you can see it. Just using another angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. So now I got to come in and notch it. And I'm going to use a grinding wheel to just take off this side and this side, basically, to make it fit into the other pipe. I know it won't be perfect. I don't have a notching tool or a large drill bit or a hole saw, but it's what I've got. And so part of the fun of doing these types of jobs is just making it work. So okay guys, so the main hoop, which is part number 5, if you follow me down here to where it meshes up with hoop number 3, the rear hoop, I got all that notched, took a little while. And then if you come back over here to the front, I had to take just a little bit of material off of there so that this plate number 6 would actually fit in there appropriately. So now it's good to go, it's solid. So next thing is going to be to tack this in place and then tack the plate in right thereafter. At this point we're at step 6, which was just tacking in this front hoop and the plate. So now this is what Coastal Offroad considers the slider body. So at this point in the instructions it says finish off the slider bodies by completing all welds. For the step plates, which are these, they recommend evenly spaced 1.5 to 2 inch long stitch welds, which are basically just little steps with a space in between them of welds. That way it has a nice clean appearance and it looks uniform. So I'm gonna go ahead and lift this and put it on some sawhorses so it's a little bit easier to move around on, get everything finished welded, and then we'll move on to the slider leg assembly. So everything's all welded up on the first side of the slider, and so what you got to do now is basically do a mock-up on your 4Runner and use a floor jack and some clamps or whatever to get it kind of where you want it, and then you mark the areas where you want the support braces, the 3 support braces to be, so that they're not interfering anything from the factory on the frame. But it's still pretty hot, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the other side, the passenger side. I just wanted to show you guys kind of what this looks like so far. I haven't done any cleanup. No cleanup or anything like that, but I'm just gonna move the other side. It's the same exact process on the other side, guys, so I'm not gonna video that part. I'm just gonna crank it out. Exactly the same steps. So the next thing you're gonna see is when we go to mock-up. Okay, what's up everybody? It's day 2 of my Coastal Offroad slider build, if you call it that, DIY kit. I got everything welded up as far as the sliders themselves yesterday. So now all I have to do is mock them up onto my 3rd Gen 4Runner, mark where I want the supports to go, making sure that they don't make any contact with any of the brackets or anything like that on the frame of my 4Runner. Weld them together, and then I will grind them all down, get them cleaned, make them look good, hit them with some primer, and then I'm going to use that same Duplicolor truck bed coating that I used on my front bumper as the coating. I know it's not the best, but it's super cheap. It's been pretty durable thus far, and it's really, really easy to touch up. So for the purpose of my rig, I think it's a perfect complement to dress these really cool looking sliders off with. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the sliders laid out next to my 4Runner, and then use my floor jack and probably some jack stands to get them all mocked up into place, get some measurements, make sure they're right, weld them all together, and then finish them up. So hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you have any questions, again, comment below and I'll be sure to get to them. Alright guys, so after doing the mock-up of the sliders here, I've decided to make my angle 10 degrees. That'll give just a little bit of an upward angle for increased ground clearance. Not the most by any means, but more importantly, it'll provide a step for my family as well as myself to step on the KICKOUT to get on the roof rack. So I'm gonna do 10 degrees and then start fitting these in. I went ahead and just ran to the store and grabbed a 10-inch metal blade for a miter saw, and I'm just going to use it on my little Ryobi compound miter saw. Just switch the blade out, so just make sure anytime you're cutting steel that you clamp it down and go slow. I just finished up cutting the braces for the sliders, only the one side, and getting them all to 10 degrees. I'll flip these around so you can see them. Okay, so those are all cut to 10 degrees, and I went ahead and beveled the edges. So now I just got to take the final measurement on how long those legs got to be, making sure that you compensate for the plate, the backing plate that welds to the frame itself. So I'm going to take those measurements, and then we'll start tacking these things together and marking the locations on the frame. So mock-up's complete. The steel bracing that goes from the skids to the frame, 10-degree angle, so I get a little bit of that pitch on the skidders. Excuse me, the sliders. And then the overall length measured that I think I need to get this portion of the sliders just on the other side of the pinch weld is 7 1/8 inch. So I'm going to cut those. It's actually about 7 1/4. I'm going to cut them to 7 1/8, and then the plates are 3/16 plate steel. So that'll get me right where I want to be. So I'm going to go ahead and work on getting those cut. And then I'm going to tack on the front and rear support legs and the plates, and then I'll test fit. If everything's good, I'll pull it back down, burn everything together. The instructions from Coastal say to wait on the leg in the middle until last, so that's what I'm going to do. The test fit after putting in the bracing is great. So I'm going to show you the angle here. You can see there's just a slight kick out, 10 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and weld the plates onto the back, and the plate's going to sit flush. I'll show you here. So it's going to sit completely flush with the bottom. Okay. You have to go flush because it'll be flush with the bottom of the frame rail. So I'm gonna get all that burned in, and then we'll measure for the middle just to make sure it's the same. And passenger side will be done. I'll move to the driver's side. We'll get everything cleaned up and primer and paint. All right, guys. So I've just burnt in the first two legs here, support legs, so that's what they look like. So now I gotta get one of these plates. They're gonna go just like that. Just make them centered, and then bottom edge to bottom edge. One important thing that I want to point out is make sure you bevel your edges of this thicker steel so that you can get really good penetration and good weld. So if I hadn't mentioned that before, just make sure you do it. It's really important. I'm going to go ahead and tack these in, do another test fit. If everything is good, I'll go ahead and burn the plates in and then the trusses. Guys, so great news. Just did another test fit after getting the legs and the backing plates tacked on. The legs are solid, but the plates are just tacked. So just did a test fit. Everything looks wonderful. So I'm gonna go ahead now and tack in the trusses, which are these little guys. These little guys here. Let me show you how they go, right? So these guys are gonna set right there like that. You can see there I got a nice angle. Just how it's supposed to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and tack those things in and then finish weld the front and rear legs completely. Once again, not worrying about the center leg yet. Do a final fitment, do some measurements with the middle leg, make sure everything's legit there, and then I'll finish that one. And then the passenger side's done, I can move on to the driver. Alright guys, so we took a little break, had some lunch, and just finalized the final fitment of the passenger side slider. Took a bunch of measurements, wanted to verify that the center brace or support was going to be the right length and size and angle and all that stuff. So I'm getting ready to tack that in, do one more verification, and then the passenger side is done with the exception of cleanup and just making sure all the welds are completed. Once I finish the driver's side, then I'll go through and hit them all with a flap disc, get everything cleaned up really good, clean them up with some acetone, prime, and then coat. So one thing that I found useful is underneath the vehicle, when I was marking the placement of the pipe, the square tubing, just run a black Sharpie to line everything up was super helpful. So now I know where to put that other brace. So we're at a really good point now, guys. I just finished up welding the driver's side slider, and other than welding the frame, I'm done welding. So now I'm going to spend some time with a flap wheel on my grinder and just clean up all the little specks and spots that happen from using a flex core welder, as well as just some of the welds that maybe didn't turn out as pretty as I wanted. So I'm going to clean that stuff up and then hit it with some alcohol or acetone so I can get some primer on it, and then start painting with the bedliner. So this is kind of what I'm looking like here. Alright guys, it's good, man. It's getting close to the end now. So I've got my new Coastal Offroad sliders all prepped, with the exception of cleaning with some acetone. I went ahead and repurposed some of the packaging material to put the sliders on for prime and paint. And let's go take a look what they look like. Excuse me, I apologize for wind. Afternoon in Nevada, it just happened. So this is what it'll look like. So like I said, it's a little windy. Apologize for that. And I'm going to go ahead and hit it with acetone, or hit these things with acetone, get them super clean, and then dry a little bit, and then start priming. The Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch 2x coverage ultra cover flat black primer. I've had really good success using this in the past on other projects. It covers really good, and it's super fast drying. By the time I get one with the first tack coat, it'll be completely dry by the time I'm done with the second, and I can just keep hopscotching, so it goes quick. I did move my forerunner out of the way with the wind blowing. I didn't want to get any overspray, So I'm gonna go ahead and get after it. Making a video. Priming's done, guys, so I'm gonna just let it dry for a few, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get the first coat of the truck bed coating on. But take a look at this. Looks pretty sweet, right? Man, it's always cool to me how when you actually put paint on something, how much it changes from just bare steel. So guys, very, very cool product. I'd be lying to you if I said that it doesn't take a little bit of finagling to make sure everything fits, excuse me, right? But that's to be expected, right? You have to take a little bit of your time, take some measurements, figure out what works for your platform, because we all know not all vehicles are created equal. Some of them have some slight differences. All in all, with some basic tools, a welder, chop saw, and an angle grinder, anybody can do this with a little bit of time on a weekend. So I'm really looking forward to getting these installed, probably tomorrow when I get off of work, just so I can make sure everything's cured really well. So let me show you the paint I'm going to be using, the truck bed coating, and then we'll start spraying at least a coat on that. So just like I did with the bumper from Coastal, I'm using the Duplicolor truck bed coating. I like it. You know, is it the best in the world? No. I really wanted to kind of go with the Raptor liner. I've had really good luck with that stuff in the past, but you know, this is like $6 a can at my local sporting goods True Value store. I can't go wrong with that, because especially in areas like the sliders that you know is going to take a little bit of a beating, this touches up really, really good, and a little bit goes a long way. So just like with a primer or anything else you use, shake it for about a minute, and then do your first coat as just a really light, basically a bonding coat, tack coat, and then make them heavier as you go on. One thing about this spray, is you want to be back a little bit further than you would with paint, or else you'll get clumps. And then make sure that you watch the nozzle and have a little rag in your pocket to wipe the nozzle every now and then, or else it'll splatter. Alright, so I fast forwarded through some of that by not recording, and you saw me put the truck bed coat on. Like I said, it comes out with a lot more pressure, so you want to be back a little bit to make sure you get really good coverage and it doesn't blotch up on you. Still drying, but take a look at what it looks like now. Really good. Alright, so tomorrow you're going to see me finishing these up. I'm going to let them dry overnight, and then I will get them mocked back up underneath my 4Runner, and then weld them to the frame, and then throw some last minute paint on that connection, and my Coastal Offroad sliders are going to be complete. Alright guys, what's up? So just continuing on with my Coastal Offroad sliders. It's been a couple of days since I was able to work on them last, but I've got them all painted, and they are dry and looking really well, or looking really good. So take a look here. Looks sweet, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and bring my 4Runner in now to the garage, and you may recall when I was fitting everything in and test fitting and all that, while I was there, I went ahead and just took a Sharpie and marked the welding plates, support plates, to the frame where I'm going to weld. So what I need to do is just get the flap wheel, grind it smooth really quick, get the paint off of it so I can get a good weld. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to start with the passenger side, get everything mocked back up, make sure everything's fitting as it should, and then tack them into place, double check one last time, and then weld them in for good. Let everything cool by going to the driver's side, do the same thing, and then I'll come back and hit them with some black paint to make sure that I don't have any rust. So really looking forward to finishing them up and seeing what it looks like on my really dirty Toyota 4Runner. So I'll show you guys that as we move on. All right, so everything's cleaned up now. I went ahead and just hit the frame with some degreaser and a cloth just to get it cleaned up before welding. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the passenger side slider on and get it mocked up and make sure everything's legit, and then I'll go ahead and start tacking it in. Alright guys, so this is how it's going to look. I just got done welding in the passenger side, and everything went really well. And go ahead and show you what it looks like here. So that's kind of it guys. So all I'm going to do now is let everything cool. I'll come back and hit it with a wire wheel and try to get everything as clean as I possibly can. And then I'm going to throw some paint on the bare metal and the legs where I didn't paint with the bedliner kit. So guys, that's it. That is the how-to video on how to do these Coastal Offroad sliders. And as I've said before, if you have any questions whatsoever, please just give me a comment and I'll make sure to answer them. I apologize for the coughing. I got a little bit of a cold. So I'm going to wrap up the other side, and then I'll pull it out and show you guys the final product. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like it, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And stay tuned because I'm getting ready to do the rear swing out bumper from Coastal Offroad as well. Totally done. It's a finished product, guys. Coastal Offroad sliders. Took me a couple of days this past weekend to get everything lined out, and not working on it full time and still being a dad and a husband and doing stuff around the house. So came out pretty cool. So I just gave the 4Runner a quick bath after hunting the last couple of weekends. So I'll give you a little bit closer look at how everything turned out. And don't make fun of my fenders. I painted them with the same truck bed coating and thought that I could get away with using a a red scrub pad to rough up the fender paint. So I got to take them back off, sand them, prime them, and then do it again. So anyways, those look like crap, but everything else looks wicked awesome. Pretty sweet, right? I'm really digging that Coastal logo. That's a wrap, guys. Hope you liked the video.